Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. It's Phil, John, and Logan today, and we're going to be talking about transitioning a workshop for winter as it's starting to get a little cool here, and pick up with a couple of updates on what's going on around the magazine world and here at the TV show for the Woodsmith Shop. This episode of the ShopNotes Podcast is presented by Ep170 Laser. Quickly and easily customize your woodworking projects for added beauty and value. Learn more at epiloglaser.com. We'll do a couple of questions and comments from last week's episode, which was whether or not Logan's getting pigs to go with all of his black walnuts that are falling from the sky. Christopher Hathaway writes, there's a farm near me in Plant City, Florida that sells macadamia nuts when available. Unshelled, they were much cheaper than shelled, and I sure realized why when I tried shelling them myself. Very difficult. Bill Powell 1614 says, my recent build was a straight grain ash top with a cherry base. If you look closely at the ash pores, they have a slight cherry coloration that I feel complements the base. And honestly, I think cherry and ash work very well together. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because they both have a relatively distinct grain pattern to them that are similar, but then you have a different coloration, which I think matches. Yeah. Helps them blend
together. Complementary.
Complementary, yes.
He was saying that the ash pores have a cherry color to them.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a question for him, but does ash actually have cherry colored pores, or did all the cherry dust settle in the open pores of the ash and discolor it? That's the question there.
That's exactly what I was thinking when I first read it. So there you go.
Right.
Maybe.
Yep.
Woodtick Greg says, this is very timely for me as I'm finally starting a build on a good quality hardwood bench. For years, my benches have been nothing but construction grade material, but they taught me a lot about workbenches. Better to make mistakes with construction lumber than hardwood. My new bench will be an ash top and legs because I have it and because it's Phil's favorite wood, LOL. I chainsaw milled the lumber, so it was basically free, and it's been air dried in my garage for over 10 years and 2 inches thick. I'm trying not to make the bench furniture grade, but it will still look nice so that it can be something I'm proud to work on. But it's going to be a bench and will be beat on. 1 or 2 end vices and dog holes. Thanks for the discussion, guys. I would love to see photos of this when you're done with it. So keep us updated. DP Meyer says, hey guys, I got a book recommendation. A Splintered History of Wood by Spike Carlson. The book explores the history of wood's global impact and its personal significance to people in all walks of life. It's a series of stories and essays about different uses of wood. My favorites include how examining wood found at the scene of the crime helped solve the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, and how England's colonization of America was for its timber. A really good read. And I had heard of that too, and I think Spike Carlson wrote for a couple of the other woodworking magazines. I don't remember if it was American Woodworker or Family Handyman, something like that. So that's kind of fun. Chuck Frayne writes, on the subject of the Gramercy Holdfast, because I was having trouble with that, my Gramercy Holdfast on my workbench. He has a set of them and used them with a bench made of 2x12 prime lumber from Home Depot. He was having the same issue with the Holdfasts that I was describing about not holding well. And then he came across a blurb on the Gramercy or Tools for Working Wood website that says, we have discovered that while the Holdfasts work great, they will work even better in more benches if you sand with 150 or 220 grit around the stems, not up and down, but round and round. So I'm going to have to give that a shot. Try that out on my workbench. Because I'd hate to lose the benefit of those Holdfasts because they're just super sweet. James Scottingham I work at a wood veneer mill. When people would graft walnut onto black walnut, they would form burls, and we would get those grafted black walnuts and slice the burls into thin sheets. I haven't seen any in decades. A log buyer said that the walnut they use today doesn't form the pretty burls like they used to. I currently live in Virginia, and we're surrounded by pecan trees and have the same issues with pecans as you do with walnuts. The husks stain the concrete and fingers, just like the walnuts do. The squirrels go crazy for pecans too. They'll sit in the trees. As you walk by, they'll drop the pecans on your head to crack both open. Very nice.
I got a 22 caliber solution to that problem.
To crack the walnuts and pecans?
Yes, the squirrel problem.
I think you have
like just shoot, like lay them out on the sidewalk or driveway.
Just shoot them. Yeah.
shoot that up. Yeah.
Pick up the bits later.
Yep.
Sounds like
Kevin
a good
Thomas writes, ash makes a fine workbench, Logan, but if you have it, hard maple and walnut looks good too. And then somebody had asked, kind of a random key smash name here, about using hedge apple or what they call Osage orange, if spelled right. And I think...
also known as Bodark.
Bodark, yep, because Brian Van Hooverswin, one of the muckamucks here at AIM, made a couple of bows, right? And had some Osage orange in there.
Yep. Osage orange does not grow very large. It's kind of one of those like fence line trees that kind of like grow along fence rows and get scraggly. The biggest you'll ever find is maybe a foot in diameter and maybe 6 foot long. That's fairly straight.
Yeah. I was going to say they always end up looking to me more like shrubs than they do trees.
Yeah. Yep. I actually have a bowl blank of Osage orange over on the other side of the shop.
Okay. I was going to say, I wonder how it turns.
Super dense. It turns beautifully with sharp tools or scrapers.
Okay. What if you put the actual hedge apple into a pressure pot and resin infused it and then turned it? Logan's saying yes, so...
no, that's not what my face is saying.
Seems like it'd be really damp.
Well, yes.
But it would keep spiders away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spray it all over.
So, like, to really, like, stabilize something, you have to have it 100% dry. It has to have a 0 moisture content.
Right.
I don't know what happens to a hedge apple if you, like, try to dehydrate it. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I see them all the time out deer hunting during shotgun season. You'll see where the deer and squirrels have been gnawing on them, and I don't know that they actually like eat them, but they definitely chew on them, and they just kind of seem to rot away versus like dry out. So like I don't know. I mean, I'm not interested, but I'm not disinterested if somebody else did it.
Not that we're starting a hedge apple turning challenge, but
no.
I think that deer and squirrels, when they just nibble on it, it's more of like a palate cleanser. It's like having some ginger in between your sushi. You just kind of...
Yes. Yep. Make sure you get a good clean taste of whatever you're eating next.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. That just seems right to me. And it's... All right. As we're filming this or recording this, the weather has changed in Iowa. The last few days, last weekend was in the 90s, which was ridiculous for being the transition from September into October. Today is in the 60s. Tomorrow is supposed to be like in the 50s. And before we started the podcast, Logan, you were talking about whether or not to flip on, activate. I don't know what the appropriate Star Trek-y kind of term is for firing up your radiant heat floor.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just a thermostat, right?
Sure.
Like, it doesn't actually turn on until the thermostat says, hey, guys, it's too cold in here. And then the boiler's like, oh, I can help you. And it turns on, and then the pumps turn on, and everything turns on.
Right.
So I guess, like, it never hurts, I guess, to have it on. You know, it just isn't going to be... The only time, I guess, that it would not make sense to have it on is if, like, it's cool enough in the morning that the temperature out here drops to the point where it kicks on, but then the temperature during the day warms up enough that it doesn't need to be on. That would be like that shoulder season would be the only time it'd be like, it doesn't make sense. But like, I have a class out here I'm teaching next week. And I mean, I don't want it cold in here. It's not, I mean, it's a little chilly right now. That's why I put my sweater on, but you know, that may be because I haven't been up doing much the last few days. I've just kind of been cold the last couple days anyways. So, you know, I don't know. I might just turn it on. I do have to like enclose that radiant floor hub out in the cold side of the shop with like a closet to make sure it stays warm during the winter. So maybe this weekend, if I get around to it, I'll close that in, get actual electrical. Because right now I'm running the boiler off of the boiler is hardwired. The panel that controls the pumps and the thermostat right now is getting plugged into an extension cord because I don't have electrical ran right there. So maybe I'll run electrical there and do all that jazz.
So, dumb question. Is the thermostat based off of room temperature or floor temperature?
Room temperature. Okay. Not a dumb question. It's actually a thermostat that it is a radiant floor thermostat. So it has an input as well for a concrete temperature probe. So there's actually a temperature probe that runs right here about to where the big bandsaw is. And it is monitoring the temperature of the concrete. And I think, I'm sure Nelson will contact, well, he'll let me know if I'm wrong because he likes to do that. But I think that concrete thermostat is, or the concrete probe is a safety feature. I think that is just making sure like the concrete itself is not getting like 160 degrees if that's the water temp you're putting into it.
Right. That the floor would actually be lava.
Yeah.
Yes.
Molten concrete is the worst.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's what that is doing. It's not a standard. Sense. It's not like a standard house thermostat, which kind of sucks because I shattered it. I don't know how I shattered it. I think I dropped the thermostat face off of the scaffolding. I'm like, oh, you know, whatever. It's a thermostat. They're like, what, $20 at Menards? Now that one's like $180 because it's a radiant floor thermostat. So I had to buy a new one.
Perfect.
You're like scooping up all the mercury, and kind of gathering all back up.
So yeah, it will be interesting because I think, and I could be wrong. I've been wrong many, many times, but I think part of the reason that radiant heat works, or what allows radiant heat to work so well, is that it heats up the floor, then it heats up all the objects in the room, right? And that kind of helps act like a heat sink to hold the heat. Because during the winter, granted, I didn't have a whole lot of insulation in here. It never felt like it really got warm with that radiant floor running. It'll be interesting to see now that I have stuff in here, and now that insulations and we're enclosed and all that jazz, how well the radiant heat works. Like, am I going to just walk around in my slippers because the floor is going to be nice and warm? I'm hoping so, but I don't know.
Shop slippers.
Shop slippers. That's right. Really hard to get the dust out of them.
Yep. That's why you change. You got to have like a little Mr. Rogers bench right by the door there so you can.
That's right. Sit down and
transition from your shop clothes to.
Yep. Yeah.
So the question that I had for you is the slab, is there a thermal break between the slab in your shop and then the garage part?
No.
Okay.
There is not.
Because that's what I was wondering, like if and how that would affect the performance of your radiant floor.
I'm sure it affects it in some way.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think if you ask anybody that does concrete work or radiant heat work, they'll make an argument for the way that they do everything, right? Whether they do it the same as each other or not.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is my concrete guys that I had to do my concrete in here. They laid my foam for me, okay? They're like, we lay foam all day, every day. Like we do, probably 70% of the floors we pour get radiant heat put in them, okay? They said that they do not do, you do the foam underneath, but they said that they don't edge the slab in foam. So like right now between my wall and my concrete, it's just, that's all it is. There's no foam standing on edge. I was reading that a lot of guys in the HVAC world are like, yeah, like why wouldn't you? Like you're losing heat out the sides. But my concrete guys, we've never done that. We've been doing this for 80 years. We do 400 floors a year. We don't do that. That's weird. So I was just like, whatever. At this point, I don't really care. So I think that, yes, there should be a thermal break in between this floor and that floor. However, there is not. So am I getting a little bit of bleed over from the heat here out to there, or a little bit of bleed over from the cold in there to here? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Can I measure it? Probably not.
Yeah.
Like I guess I have my FLIR thermal camera, so when I flip it on and it gets cold enough, I could actually probably walk out there and see where the concrete gradually get colder as it gets further away from that wall.
Yeah. Or it'd be interesting to see in late, like in the depths of winter in your shop on that wall, if you could,
feel the cold?
If there's a noticeable difference along there.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think there will be, because my feeders, so I have 5 loops in here, okay? So they run from me over to that wall, and kind of back and forth, right? As you work further towards, whatever north wall, I think that this is, those loops have to go from the manifold that way and then go back and forth. Actually, I have the hottest water on those loops going right along that wall until they start going back and forth. So I don't know. I guess that's a long answer of I don't know.
Yeah. I would think just the surface area in general is such a small ratio on the edges compared to
the overall.
That I don't know. Is it worth it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Like if you could theoretically measure it and say, okay, I'm gonna if I insulate the perimeter and do a thermal break between this slab and that slab, so I'd have essentially 2 slabs. I'm gonna save $10 a year on heating, but I'm gonna spend $200 more in foam. So 20 years, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. There's a give and take there, and I don't know what that is. I have no idea. I'm not a professional. You guys know this.
Yeah. Then Star was like, that just sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I would be interested to know, like, if there's anybody out there who has actual experience rather than theoretical stuff that they remember from high school physics.
Yep. I'm looking at you, Nelson, because I know you've done this.
Yeah. What are the implications on, not having the slab in a bathtub of foam? And what, if any, penalty there is between, having a thermal break from an unheated to a heated section on a, because if you think about like most of the houses in our area are built that have basements. Yep. But if you're doing like a slab on grade house, and you have an attached garage and you do radiant flooring, essentially that's the same situation as what you have going on right there. So
100%.
How does that get done? is there a thermal break done? Blah, blah, blah. It was just a question, and I don't know. And it would be interesting to see, like you said, because, you didn't really have insulation or finish work done in your shop last winter. So this winter and cooling season or heating season will be kind of an interesting test to see what it's like. And I'm interested. It would be kind of fun to see where it's going.
I think it's going to be interesting because I noticed, I got 14-foot ceilings in here. In the depths of summer, when it was 100 degrees outside, my one mini split that I have set up right now was keeping it at 70 degrees in here. Like, shit, when we were in here filming the other day, Phil, you're like, it's cold in here.
Yeah.
And as soon as you climb the ladder above 8 foot, it is significantly warmer. Like, all that hot air goes straight to the ceiling.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm going to have that during winter as well. Like, it's going to, you know what I mean? Like, if adding a couple of ceiling fans in here wouldn't help keep some of that hot air down. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
So it was just, I don't know. This is all going to be a learning experience. I will say the one thing I did do is there is moisture barrier under this entire slab.
Right.
And my concrete guys were not happy about that. But I was like, they're like, nah, you don't need moisture barrier. We think it's a waste of time. I'm like, well, it's because you guys didn't finish 4th grade. Like,
that's where you learn that.
That's where you learn that is 4th grade.
At the end of 4th grade.
Yeah. Last thing you learn before summer. But I wanted a dry slab. So, because concrete, moisture can migrate through concrete, right? So if the ground's wet, the concrete will wick up moisture. So if I lay a board down on concrete that doesn't have a moisture barrier, there will be water underneath that board.
Yeah.
I stack lumber over there. I don't want that. So I did, let me think about this. I think, so the pink foam under this side, the insulation, it counts as a moisture barrier because I taped all the seams. Right. But then that side I did I don't remember what it was, 8 mil plastic underneath the concrete. So technically there is a vapor barrier, so that will help a little bit, but not much. So
yeah,
I don't know.
So there's only foam under your side or under the shop side? Okay.
Yep. Because I think I told you guys this. Man, last time I bought that pink foam, the 2-inch pink foam, it was $17 a sheet. Mm.
Right.
It's $50-some a sheet now. So, and I had to buy 100 sheets for this side. No. Yeah, 100 sheets because they're, it's it was 3,200 square feet. So it was a lot. So, or maybe about 50. I bought 50 sheets because I bought a pallet, which was 48 sheets plus 2. So about 50 sheets. I did not insulate that. Nothing over there is insulated. I don't have a weather seal on my doors yet. This winter, that is the mouse haven.
This episode of the ShopNotes Podcast is presented by Epilogue Laser. You can quickly and easily customize your woodworking projects for added beauty and value. Learn more at epiloguelaser.com. Well, we're in the midst of redoing some stuff in the video studio set here. We pulled all the stuff off the wall yesterday. Going to do some painting in here for getting ready for season 18, so that's kind of cool. And probably going to do some rearranging, I think, too, we had talked about.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we added another wall.
Yep.
So it's weird because the way we set things up in that studio, it's a functional shop, but it's not how I would set it up if it was my shop. You know what I mean? Because we have to get cameras around a certain way. Same thing with this. I have this set up in a particular way because I'm shooting photos. So if I wasn't shooting photos for magazine stuff, I would have this set up a little bit differently than what I do.
Yeah.
It's just I want some backgrounds clean,
Yeah, it's not really set up for workflow, is what you mean, as a normal shop would be. It's just set up what's convenient for lighting and camera movement.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
And because we really can't use one of the walls.
Yep.
There's the proverbial fourth wall of, theater work that is invisible to the viewer, but, it's not like we're going to put anything along that wall. Because I keep thinking about it like there is a ton of space in this studio when I look around.
Yeah.
But you can only use like
You can only
10
use half
foot away from each wall. Yeah.
Because the cameras are on the other half.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I know.
Well, it's like because right now I have my Vic Mark and then the big bandsaw, and I set up my planer over there.
Right.
I have a turning class I have to teach in here in a couple of weeks. So I need to bring a bunch of lathes in, which means I also need to get that big Oliver lathe in here.
Oh, yeah.
And I know where it's going. I mean, it's going to go kind of, perpendicular to my Vic Mark. And I really want to mess with it. It's just a cool old machine. But it's going to make that really tight over there. And
right.
I'm like, I'm probably like that half. I'm not planning on shooting photos on a ton. Usually it's over here, or here the table saw, or the router table or something, or maybe the bandsaw. So I'm not necessarily planning on shooting over there. So I'm not terribly concerned. And as I'm standing there, I'm like, I could work. Like I'm kind of placing tools and stuff. I'm like, I could work in here, no issue. Like this is a standard shop setup. But a standard shop setup is not easy to roll cameras around or roll lights around or do all that jazz. And it's just, it's just different.
I think it would be an interesting video to take the studio set and consider don't consider brands or whatever about the different tools, but have the three of us or Chris or even Dylan put together, like, this is how if this were my space, this is how I would set up the shop.
Mm-hmm.
We have most of the stuff is on mobile bases or easy enough to move around, where it'd be like, shift everything around. This is what I would do. This is what it would look like. Yep. And then have somebody else come in and then explain it and then figure out. Because I think one person's standard shop setup is totally different than another person's.
Yeah.
So that would be a kind of a curious thing. So,
yeah. What are your guys' opinions? Because I've talked to you guys about it. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast. I'm trying to figure out what to do with my dust collection in here.
Okay.
Because right now I have the Oneida Supercell. We shot some video on that. I was working with Oneida to get a plan together for hard pipe dust collection in here. And they said, well, we got some good news and we got some bad news. The bad news is for you. Good news is for us. The bad news is the Supercell's not going to work. The good news for us is here's a estimate for $8,000 for dust collection, piping, and a new dust collector that will handle the bigger stuff that we have.
Yeah.
So that's kind of got me thinking about dust collection, and I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with it. I don't think I'm going to spend $8,000 on dust collection. I'm hard to skip a beat when I said that. But it's got me thinking about like dust collection on tools and at tool sites and stuff. What are your guys' opinions on table saw dust collection? They all have the ports on the bottom, but then almost every one of them comes with some form of dust collection at the blade. Like the saw stop that I have has the one that I think it fits in the riving knife holder and it has the two little paws on it, and then it has like shop vac hose sized one off the back. We have the floating overarm ones in the shop.
Right.
What's your guys' opinions on those? Like the ones at the blade.
Like underneath the blade as a shroud?
Over the blade.
Over the blade.
I am not a fan just because they always seem like they're in the way. Like anything you're trying to do, they're in the way. But like what Phil's talking about, the ones underneath, they seem to work really well until either A, you don't turn on the dust collector and then the cavity fills with dust and chips, or the tube will come off or pop off or something, and then. But when they're working, they work great. I think for the most part.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
So.
I don't have a lot of experience with the overarm one. We've done a couple of plans from ShopNotes that had, it was an overarm blade cover, and then also incorporated a dust collection feature into that. So I don't know. And it's one of those things that all of my table saw experience prior to coming here has been without those.
Mm-hmm.
So to then have one, like John said, it just feels really clumsy and in the way. And it would be interesting to have been, or to train myself to use them. Like, this is just how it is.
You gotta use it.
And then, you got to use it, and then just use it, and then find out from there. Because, like I said, the ones we did for project plans, they've always been somewhat popular plans, and I feel like they would be pretty practical. Yeah. But, again, I just don't. They feel clumsy to me, but
I don't remember if it was Stumpy Nubs or if it was Steve Ramsey. Is that a woodworking guy?
Yeah, he's woodworking for Mere Mortals.
Yes. I feel like maybe it was him that said he made a video of like, these are the most dangerous table saw safety feature that anybody has ever designed, because you can't see the blade. Like, at least with those removed, you can see the blade and you know where the blade's at. But with one of those on, you can't see anything. And I guess that's always been my issue with them. And I had a ceiling mount one. I don't remember if it was like the table saw shark or something, like the shark guard or something. It actually it mounted to the ceiling. I had it mounted to the ceiling down at the shop in the basement. And it sat over the blade and stuff, thinking, it's going to help me. And I actually sold it. I sold it to I think a reader or a subscriber or a listener or something. And I hope they started using it. It just never seemed like it worked very well. But I never had the right size dust collector down there, I guess.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. I mean, that would probably be a little bit more convenient if it were coming straight down over the blade. The ones we have a swing out arm, and it just seems like it's always in the way. And I don't know that I've ever seen anybody actually use it. No. It's always just swung out of the way. So, and then plus with those guards, you can't do any like really thin or thinner strips because the fence is going to hit it. Yep. And obviously if you're doing dados and stuff, it's not doing anything because all the dust is directed down or out. It's nothing's coming up. So,
well, and that's another thing. Like I feel like if you have a clean zero clearance insert, your shroud underneath is clean and clear to the dust collector, and the dust collector is working as it should. Like I feel like you're pretty good with dust collection with that setup. I think the time, like you said, John, when I really have ran into issues is like somebody didn't turn the dust collector on. So then I'm in the cabinet for the next 10 minutes, like reaching my arm through the tube trying to clear a block or something like that, Mm-hmm. It's just I'm trying to do it right, but I don't know what the right is at the table saw in particular. It's just like it's like the bandsaw. Like the Laguna has that in the shop there, has the same dust collection setup that this Powermatic has, where it's the 2 ports. They don't freaking work real well.
Yeah.
They do a little bit. But...
We did the shop cleanup today, and I opened up the new Laguna to vacuum that out because I thought there would be a ton of stuff in there, and there actually wasn't. It was pretty clean.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is that bottom one, the bottom port, because there's always a port right underneath the blade guard or the bearings, and then there's one in the bottom of the bottom wheel. And I think that helps get most of the stuff that packs leak inside the wheels, but there's still usually a boatload of crap left on the table.
Yeah.
When you're done cutting. So
right.
But and I do think that it also makes a difference. I understand that what we do is a little different because we are working in a shared shop. if you have more than one blast gate open, you're killing your dust collection.
Right.
So a lot of the times, if I'm in the shop, especially if I'm in the shop alone, like after hours or, in the afternoon when nobody's at work anymore, it's like, all right, turn the dust collection on, and then you just walk around hitting every one of the blast gates that's open. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, there's the dust collection.
You can hear the frequency change. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
No, that would be, dust collection is I think a very easily overlooked item because it feels like it doesn't actually do anything until you end up having to empty the dust collector because it's like, oh yeah, I guess this is actually working.
Yep.
But the table saw that I had was a Craftsman Contractors one with the motor hanging out the back. And over time, I, upgraded different features on it. And one of the things that I noticed when I had it apart or was looking at it is that there was a cast half part of a shroud underneath the blade, but there wasn't its opposite half. And then there was like a half, because it was cast, half of a dust collection port right back there, which I thought was the funniest thing in the world. So I ended up making kind of a plywood match to that side and then hooked up like a little 45 PVC fitting on it. And I was surprised on how much that, and I just ran it to my shop vac, but I was surprised on how much that made a big difference on cleaning up dust from that tool.
Yeah.
So I think the overarm should be considered more of a safety, keep your hands away from the blade physical barrier than it is a dust collection source of any value, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to be redesigning my outfeed table. I'm going to do a torsion box style, and I'm going to do a couple built-ins on it. It's actually going to require me modifying the Craig base that I have, so I'm going to have to chop that guy up, I think. But that Delta Unisaw that I bought and flipped where I bought that jointer from that's behind me, it had I think it was the Delta Rockwell. So I think it was a Rockwell brand outfeed table on it, like a fold-up outfeed table.
Okay.
But it had a couple of cutouts on the outfeed table for the dust collection hose to go through. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. So I'm like trying to decide if I go dig out my shroud and maybe I build it in, especially if I'm teaching classes in here, maybe I build it in just to be able to put it on when I need to put it on, for people to keep their fingers away. But I don't know. Just one of those things, like, I understand that it's the shop still, but I really like to keep the dust kind of to a minimum when I can.
Yeah.
So, but
if only for the fact of minimizing the amount of sweeping cleanup that you'd have to do.
yeah. Well, and my floor, because it's that textured epoxy, it sweeps up okay, but it takes a little bit of aggressive scrubbing. Not scrubbing is not the right word. It takes some brisk sweeping to get it to actually pick up the dust. So I bought a dust collector vacuum head from like Rockler. So it hooks up to the 4-inch dust collector, and you can actually like vacuum your floor, and it works really well. It's just the flex hose for that. The flex hose for that supercell is so heavy because it has so much static pressure that it has to be pretty rigid to not collapse. It's like you're trying to haul around a freaking fire hose as you're trying to vacuum. It's just, man, it's a struggle.
All right, before we wrap up, I wanted to share, I got a new to me tool last week from Logan. Traded to get a double bevel carving gouge. So this was actually started off as a normal bench chisel. But I'll put photos on the show notes page. But what I wanted for was to do some of my carving, like for letter work, having a double bevel, I don't know what they would call it, a flat gouge, I guess, technically. Right? I don't know. Anyway, the chisel that I got from Logan did not have a handle on it, so I turned a version of my new standard handle out of beech. This one I did not include a ferrule on it because this particular chisel had a pretty large flange, I guess, right where the tang meets the blade. And then I put some pretty thick leather in between it, kind of like a shock washer on it, which is a traditional detail. And honestly, I feel like this is probably one of the best turned handles that I've done in this style. So,
and beech works well in that.
Yeah, and this one is beech.
Yeah.
For those who are watching on the radio, it's works really well, and I've kind of getting the hang of turning with those little carbide scrapery tools. Because I talked about last week the rolling pin that I made, again with the scrapey carbide tools. So, and then to install the blade, I burned it in. I drilled a couple of pilot holes in there just to get it started, but
Oops.
Full confession is I did something stupid and had the blade facing up. And as I was pushing it in, it slipped. And so I have 9 stitches across the middle finger of my left hand that I'm working on, which actually happened almost exactly a week ago for when we're recording this. So I have been frustratingly unable to do any woodworking since then as my finger heals. And I'm actually in the itchy stage right now. So it just right where the stitches just kind of...
My stitches are not at the itchy stage yet. Thank God.
So
I
did.
I have to ask, because I've done several burn-ins on handles like that, okay? My standard is always to, not saying this is right, I'm just saying this is how I've done it, and I've never ended up with stitches, but my standard is to put the chisel in my machinist vise, okay? So tang up, heat that tang until it's like red hot. Usually I pre-drill my tang hole with a step bit, so it actually is kind of like tapered. I have one particular step bit that's really long and narrow, and it works really well for. Okay. Then I get a tang red hot. Usually I wrap the blade with like a what do I have? It's like a piece of fire hose or something. It's like a really thick like corduroy type material, like a woven material.
Yeah.
That I wet to keep the heat from migrating down, kind of act like a heat sink. Then I get the tang red hot, and I just go, psh, and it just slips right on there, burns itself in. I think I did it on one of the pear handles that I turned for some carving tools, and I think there was resin in it, and it actually boiled and pushed the resin out the sides of the wood of the handle. But usually it just pushes right down with no issue.
Yeah.
Like, how were you pushing it on that you stabbed yourself? I'm just trying to visualize how this happened.
Right. And it was one of those things, like, I try pretty hard to do stuff safely. And sometimes there's just something that you do, and in the middle of it, it seemed like this is what you just got to do. And then as soon as I cut myself, it was like, nope, I know exactly what I should have done. Because what I did is I had the handle facing up, and I was holding the chisel in pliers by the blade, heating up because I had the torch just sitting there. So I was heating up the tang that way, and then I was pushing the blade down with the pliers, and then the pliers slipped, and my middle finger went straight down onto the blade.
Okay.
So
got it. I was trying to in my head visualize how the whole thing happened.
Yeah.
When you sent a picture of your hand in the doctor's lap.
So then the next day I was feeling embarrassed and mad at myself for having done it the wrong way. So I came in and then I did like what you said. I put the chisel tip down on a piece of scrap plywood, held it with a hand screw.
Okay.
And then heated up the tang.
Okay.
Till it was, I think I didn't heat up the tang hot enough either. And then I was just able to push the handle on. I actually tapped it on with a mallet. And then on the heel end or the butt end of the handle, you can still kind of see it is like a little like water boiled out of there.
Yeah.
It was
I've definitely had that happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, I have it and it's fixed and I have proven to be the master of this chisel, but it did bite me first. So
you got it sharp though.
I did get it sharp. It is very, because I don't know where you picked it up. You maybe remember or don't. Anyway, somebody had ground it. It's 1/2 inch wide, but somebody had ground it almost like a screwdriver shape so that it tapered way in, was much narrower. So I had to grind all that back and then put the double bevel on. Because like I said, it was a bench chisel, so it only had a single. But no, the sharpening part and the grinding went really fast. Well,
and we had to retemper it, or we had to reharden it because it was soft.
Because it was kind of soft,
So.
Yeah, because whoever had ground it into that other shape, you could see that that edge was all blued. Yeah. So.
Yep.
So anyway, I'm excited about this coming Monday when the stitches come off and I can begin to do normal functions. And being left-handed, having your left hand mostly out of commission is frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, got it, learned my lesson, figured it out. So.
Yeah, the next I had to decide, like, do I work on my windows or do I just get my actual job done and do some magazine projects? I'm really sick of looking at these windows just wrapped with Tyvek and stuff. So I kind of just want to do the dang windows. Although I realize these are 60-inch windows.
Okay.
So I must have ran Liberty hardwood out of 10-foot alder. Because everything I was getting, and I got a lot of it. Like, I mean, everything's alder, right? So I got a lot of it. And it was all 10 foot. Until this last order. And then it was all 8 foot. These are 60-inch windows.
Yeah.
I could get 2 window trim pieces out of a 10-foot piece, but out of an 8-foot piece, I'm only getting 1, which kind of sucks. Like, this is less than ideal.
Yeah. So what project are you going to build out of 2 and 3 foot pieces of?
I don't know. Well, I have to. My next project for the magazine is going to be a sawtill. I have a sawtill downstairs that was actually one of the old Woodsmith ones. You remember that Vergoing furl one?
Yep.
It's a beautiful looking sawtill. It doesn't fit. It was made to fit particular saws, and my saws don't fit. Like it had handle cutouts for a couple of dovetail style saws, and my saw handles don't fit on those. My panel saws are too long to fit where the panel saws go on that one, so it's kind of it doesn't work real well. So I'm going to build another sawtill, one that will kind of fit all my saws. So that one's going to start first. But then my next project's going to be the workbench. And I was talking to you guys about this a little bit while we were in last week. There's a gentleman by the name of Stephen Bunn who had sold a workbench project to Popular Woodworking probably 10 years ago. And it was never published. So he got a hold of me. He's like, hey, you still own this thing. Like, you can still publish it if you want. I got paid for it, so I'm not in a hurry. But he's like, I would love to see it published. And Steven was a cabinet maker, or he was a woodworker at Thomas Mosier Furniture. And Thomas Mosier asked Stephen, when Taunton Press released their Workbenches book back in the early 2000s, I think, there was a big Shaker workbench on the front of that book. And Thomas Mosier told Stephen, hey, I want you to design a workbench like this, but smaller. I will provide the material for 2 of them, and you keep one and I'll keep one. So that's what Stephen did. And that was the workbench that Stephen sold to Pop Wood, was that design. So I emailed Stephen the other day, and I was like, hey, Stephen, I still have this email from you from a year ago. I have the CD that has all the files on it. I was like, here's what I would like to do. I would like to publish this in the next couple issues with your photos, but I would also like to be building one at the same time for my shop here. Are you cool with me like showing your photo on how you did it and then my photo on how I did it, and just kind of it's a parallel story where it shows, here's the original, here's the one I'm building that is a little different, and here's why. He's like, yeah, go for it. So he actually yesterday sent me all of his he said, I went to my local library to scan these because they're hand drawings of the bench. So he went to the library and scanned all of these drawings that he had and sent them to me, which is kind of cool. So it's all his handwritten notes on when he was building this bench. So that will be the next one. That's a long-winded answer of it's going to be a cherry base, but it requires a lot of 2 and 3 foot stuff. So maybe some parts of it will be alder.
There you go.
Do drawers out of alder or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yep.
All right, there you go. That wraps up another episode of the ShopNotes podcast. Got an issue of ShopNotes coming out later, a couple of months from now. So thanks for listening. If you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, you could put those in the comment section on our YouTube channel or send us an email, woodsmith@woodsmith.com. Thank you to Epilogue Laser for sponsoring this episode. Check out their stuff on ways you can create unique and one-of-a-kind woodworking projects and personalize them. You can take a look at epiloguelaser.com. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.